Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus. How about that? Welcome to the show, everybody. How are we? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night. And we'll see you next week. Welcome to a third year bonus of Me and Paranormal You. This is a solo episode where I dive into some things. We're going to dive into some things, just like I said here. I'm just trying to get my workspace arranged here a little later than I should have. Of course, because that's the way things go. Now, we are well into the month of June. I believe when this comes out, you'll have 1 day left to make your plans to go see Fitz, Friends in the Sky, the Investigation and Mutilation Ranch, the documentary at the Masari Theater at Trinidad State Junior College in Trinidad, Colorado. The Eventbrite, there's a link. I've been posting links. So, sorry, I'm chugging some coffee. So go get some tickets and come join us for what's going to be the world premiere screening of Fitz, the documentary that so many people have worked so hard on. It's a fascinating story. Part 2 is already being worked on. I don't know, who knows? There'll probably be part 3 and maybe part 4. Who knows? But so what are we going to talk about today? I want to get a little bit into magic and reality today because I think they're kind of the undercurrent of so much of the stuff that I've been super into lately and that I think tie into all paranormal activity. I don't know. I often think about the world around me, like most of us do. But it is only when I allow myself to deep dive into whatever random thoughts that arrive or sprout from the branches of my mind that I find myself oftentimes in territory I'm not familiar with, or at least consciously so. How often do we find ourselves not allowing the sprawl to happen in our thoughts nowadays? There are so many shiny things that can distract us. I get it. I am often chasing after the shiny object too, not allowing myself enough time as I should to just sit and think about existence, the mysteries of the universe, what I might want for lunch that day, reminisce about past memories, or, think about the future. I love to ponder reality. That's one of my favorite things. And what it is and what that word even means. I think many people are doing this since the pandemic and allowing themselves to be open to other possibilities or unknown alternatives. Whether you believe in something like the hollow earth, the computer simulation theory, or like me, tend to lean into idealism and think that consciousness is the foundation of all things, it is enjoyable to go on these joy rides in our imagination. I remember going on these internal trips even as a child, but later in life, I found at times if I didn't pull myself out after too long, I would start to feel weird or strange. A vibration would overcome my body. I always associated it with the feeling that you get when, you feel like you're driving yourself crazy about something. Or when you say the same word too many times and it starts to lose all meaning. Turns out those moments are the ones I've been searching for all along. Fear often stops us. It's a barrier in the accomplishment of so many things, and we all have our greatest hits list when it comes to fears. It is only when we push through the fear that we can find new discoveries, new vibrations, new energies that exhilarate or even terrify us in a deeper way that we didn't anticipate. It could be a lot of unknown components of these things that scare us, or combinations, right? Before we know what they are. Oftentimes you hear that, like we are afraid of the unknown, right? But I also don't want to give that idea too much power, because it is many times the unknown that excites or thrills us. That is exactly how I always thought about magic. It excited me. It thrilled me. It never scared me. Now, for some reason, it will be used as a fear tactic and a scare tactic, but it never was in that realm for me. Phil Hine, in his book, I've got it here, Condensed Chaos, he writes, this is a quote, I've written some of this down. Our sense of achievable reality is the limitations which we believe bind us into a narrow range of actions and successes, what we believe to be possible for us at any one time. This is echoed in other practices, and that's the end of the quote. And even by Robert Monroe will kind of echo this when he discusses the power of thoughts while traveling out of body, and how they're instantaneous creations. They will create instantaneously with no downtime. So the question, it kind of reminds me of how we talk about the speed of thought. We've mused about that for years about maybe that's faster than the speed of light, right? So the question is, what do we do about it? Or how do we change it, this achievable reality, right? Hine goes on to write, quote, "It should be understood that magic is not only concerned with pushing back the boundaries of achievable reality, but also understanding that some self-imposed limitations can be as much a source of power as a restriction." So these that's the end of the quote. These self-imposed limitations that we're putting on ourselves, they can restrict us from pushing the barrier further out of our achievable reality, right? But they also can be a source of power. And I think that is maybe speaking to a component of discipline when it comes to practice, specifically magical practice. In chaos magic, it's Condensed Chaos. It's a book about chaos magic, and I love the idea of chaos magic, and it's a wonderful book. I highly recommend reading it. Now, we're going to make a small leap over here now. These things are connected. And it's been a fun day kind of going through and finding the synchronicities in these books. Let's get into Real Magic by Dr. Dean Radin. Ancient Wisdom, Modern Science, and a Guide to the Secret Power of the Universe. Now, what could the secret power of the universe be? You might be asking yourself, well, I had the page saved, and did I drop the bookmark? Did it fall out on me? You know what? Now that's some real magic. Oh, it did. Let's see if I can just kind of get lucky here. It's about he does have a section on Ted Owens. And if you've ever read PK Man by Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove, I highly recommend that book. We're going to get there, I promise. Oh my, this is just perfect. But like, there's a connection between what I'm trying to paint here is this idea that, here's a section on consciousness and magic. Maybe I should just go with that. But because that ties in directly what we're talking about as well. But a symbolic reality is the section I found it. It's page 203. But all these things tie together, and as a foundational principles of like what is a reality. Because I think that's at the heart of today's discussion is what even reality means when we say what is our reality, right? And I've had this conversation with friends, and it's an never-ending, an ongoing, forever conversation, I imagine. But this ties in directly to what we're talking about here. So mathematics is the language of physics, and Max Tegmark thinks that mathematics is the universe. But despite the appeal of symbolic and informational models of reality, there's a big problem. Gödel's incompleteness theorems. Mathematician Kurt Gödel proved that's a word not to be taken lightly, that no system of mathematics can be considered complete. Any non-trivial mathematical or logic system will be either incomplete or inconsistent. And that, in turn, means the universe cannot be completely modeled with mathematics. Said another way, a symbolic language by itself can describe physical reality amazingly well, but something will always be left out. Is that something, quote, outside, end quote, the physical world, meaning non-physical? Could the missing element be consciousness? From a religious perspective, a theist may enthusiastically agree and point to biblical scripture such as John 1:1, quote, excuse me, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, end quote. That poetic phrase is intriguing, but poetry doesn't provide much explanatory power. For that, we'll have to turn to science, but it's not going to be easy. As physicists Sarah Walker and Paul Davies explained, and this is a quote, we propose that the hard problem of life is the problem of how, quote, information, end quote, can affect the world. We suspect that a full resolution of the hard problem will not ultimately be reducible to known physical principles. If we are so lucky as to stumble on a new fundamental understanding of life, it could be such a radical departure from what we know now that it might be left to the next generation of physicists to reconcile the unification of life with other domains of physics. Basically, there's a triangle here where the mind's at top and consciousness is at the bottom. What is kind of proposed here is it's loosely based on it loosely ties into the fundamental aspects of what idealism is, and that is that consciousness is in fact the foundation of everything in existence of the universe, and all things other emanate from it at some level, or at some level, like the grandchild of consciousness would be the great grandchild of consciousness would be psychology, or the study of such things, right? That's interesting. These are all interesting things because in there they talk about how science essentially, let me just boil this down to layman's terms as far as I can understand what I have just read to you. We are talking at the beginning about what does the word reality even mean? And it's something I've been fascinated with forever, and how you can almost feel crazy if you keep saying octopus, 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 and it doesn't feel real anymore. It may be because it's not real, right? That creature has many different names. I just know the one that sounds like octopus, right? Words. There's a really funny, brilliant stand-up comedian named Bill Santiago. And one time, this was years ago, we were having coffee. And he was talking about, God, I got to get Bill, or maybe I got to try to reach out and get Bill on the show, because he was talking about that sentence from the Bible, John 1:1, and about the word, and how we were talking specifically about the power of words and, stand-up comedy and, writing a joke, crafting a joke, and giving a name to things, or speaking, or having the word itself, and how that was the actual creation of, man biting the apple kind of thing. That's the fall of man, when the discovery of language. Anyway, it's a really fascinating conversation that it's been 13 years ago, so I don't remember, but put a pin in my mental notebook there. But yeah, so what is reality even mean, right? What does it even mean? Do we know? Can we ever know? And shall we ever know? I don't know the answer to that. But if you go into The Golden Bow by James George Frazer, which is this thick anthology book of like a compendium of like all the world's religions, there's chapter 1, the mortality of the gods, right? Now, I believe this ties in. You may agree or you may not. So let me just read. This is chapter 1. At an early stage of the intellectual development, man deems himself At an early stage of his intellectual development, man deems himself naturally immortal, and imagines that were it not for the baleful arts of sorcerers who cut the vital thread prematurely short, he would live forever. Sorcerers, magic. The illusion, so flattering to human wishes and hopes. Okay, let me get that sentence right for you. The illusion, I'm like developing a stutter the older I get. So flattering to human wishes and hopes is still current among many savage tribes at the present day. And this book is old, to use such a word as savage, but so apologies. And it may be supposed to have prevailed universally in that age of magic which appears to have everywhere preceded the age of religion. But in time, the sad truth of human mortality was borne in upon our primitive philosopher, with a force of demonstration which no prejudice could resist and no sophistry dissemble. Among the manifold influences which combined to wring from him a reluctant assent to the necessity of death must be numbered the growing influence of religion, which, by exposing the vanity of magic and of all the extravagant pretensions built on it, gradually lowered man's proud and defiant attitude towards nature, and taught him to believe that there are mysteries in the universe which his feeble intellect can never fathom, and forces which his puny hands can never control. Thus, more and more he learned to bow to the inevitable and to console himself for the brevity and the sorrows of life on earth by the hope of a blissful eternity hereafter. But if he reluctantly acknowledged the existence of beings at once superhuman and supernatural, he was as yet far from suspecting the width and the depth of the gulf of which divided him from them. The gods with whom his imagination now peopled the darkness of the unknown were indeed admitted by him to be his superiors in knowledge and in power, in the joyous splendor of their life, and in the length of its duration. But, though he knew it not, these glorious and awful beings were merely, like the spectre of the Brocken, the reflections of his own diminutive personality, exaggerated into gigantic proportions by distance and by the mists and clouds of ignorance upon which they were cast. Man, in fact, created gods in his own likeness, and being himself mortal, he naturally supposed his creatures to be in the same sad predicament. Thus the Greenlanders believed that a wind could kill their most powerful god, and that he would certainly die if he touched a dog. When they heard of the Christian God, they kept asking if he never died, and being informed that he did not, they were much surprised and said that he must be a very great God indeed. So, there are things that man can never fathom, right? That's for me, the big takeaway there, right? So you have this move away from magic, which Frazer is talking about. And keep in mind, it's not shining a bright, favorable light on magical practice. And that is because this book is about religions, right? And what religions, when they came up and what they did and what they were about and what they were reacting against or replacing, etc., etc. And it's written from a very specific perspective, right? So, a few years back, at least now, what was it called? The Death of Forever. There's a book around here somewhere called The Death of Forever. I've got it. I can't find it. I'm not going to look for it right now. And it talks about the creation, the birth of man's ego, happens when he becomes aware of his own mortality, which is, I don't think we can underestimate the importance of such an event. And there are scientists and sociologists, there are very brilliant people out there who study this very thing. And there are some great TED Talks out there about it. There's a book called The Worm at the Core, which I have now in my possession, but I have not yet had a chance to read, which is about the problem, the fear of death and these things, and how, pretty sure, the argument is that it is the creator of all of the problems, right? So what we have a creature, us, who one day wakes up, suddenly realizes, oh, we can die, therefore we have an identity. It's the end of our immortality. So what do? We slowly but surely, or maybe quickly, and not so surely, create all these different afterlives so we don't die, so that when we do die, that it's not really death. And that's what this whole show is about, trying to show that this show shows or investigates the possibilities that we can communicate with consciousness, our spirit, whatever we want to call it, our ghost, after physical death. That's one of the components of this. And that this consciousness not only lives on after our physical form, but it expands to the farthest reaches of the universe. And there is no true separation between my consciousness and yours, or anything or anyone else's. Well, when we get back, we're going to start trying to unpack some of this. Just a reminder, patreon.com/Ryan Singer, $3 a month, no commercials ever. And I'm out on the road. By the time you hear this, I'm out here traveling. So I'm trying to get, a few recorded in advance. But I hope to see you at a live show sometime this summer. I'll be in Austin on June 18th at Curia Arcanum. That's going to be a wild, fun show. So we're going to be right back after this short break. And we're back. I hope you're back. So what we're talking about is, what is reality? Is reality even real? Is reality itty? Like, I like the idea that an itty bit of real is reality, right? And so that's not how you spell itty bitty, but I guess itty bitty, reality bitty, real itty bitty, real itty bitty, real itty bitty. So it's real itty, reality. So let's get Mike Kaplan on the show and we can break this down. Now, the birth of ego, the understanding of our mortality, the creation of gods and religion, our ironically undying quest to prove that we don't truly die. Is that all this podcast is about? And going on ghost investigations, is it a desperate plea for the human creature, me, you, other people who do this work or go on these adventures? Are we so desperate to fight the idea that once we have physical death, it's lights out, that we are willing to invest all kinds of money in recording equipment, do weekly shows, have conversations, read these books, and try to get to the bottom and solve this mystery when in fact, at the end of the day, the only real mystery is, why can't you just be okay with dying? And I'd like to think I'm okay with death, and I don't feel like dying right now, but I'd like to think I'm okay and have accepted that it is a part of reality. And we don't talk about it here in the Western world very much. I've got some friends who are death doulas, and they do death work, and it's profound work, especially for so many of us who refuse to acknowledge the reality of the fact that our physical form will not last forever. I know that. I need to be reminded of it, and I am on occasion when I bend down to pick something up and my back tweaks, or I bleed, or I need sleep because I'm so tired. This physical body is not indestructible and won't go on forever. Now, do we try to get as much mileage out of it as we can while we can? I mean, I don't know. There's different schools of thought, and different people live their lives in different ways. But when it comes to the idea that we have an achievable reality, right? This is another layer of existing. You can live your life just doing whatever's right in front of you. You can, boom, be in the physical world, the material world, and just plow through life doing that. And you could probably have a really damn good time doing it. You could probably have a lot of fulfilling moments, just as many, maybe more fulfilling moments than the esoteric seeker or the philosophy, obsessed investigator, or the paranormally inclined communicator with the other side. You could probably just have just as good. Nobody's life is better than somebody else's. Now, you have to follow your interests, right? And we talked about this, I think, last week, or a week or two ago. It doesn't matter. About being open to it. It's never too late to let your curiosity, grab you by the tail and take you on a fun adventure. And, I've been lucky enough to where I've let myself do that in a couple different ways, right? Whether it's, pursuing a career and a life as an artist, as someone who does stand-up comedy, and, I put out a book, do this podcast, I've done some acting, and, I create things, things like that. That is a real let curiosity swing you around by the tail thing. And sometimes it bumps your head on the corner of something. And sometimes it's just the best feeling ever, getting swung around, right? It's not an easy life necessarily, but it, in fact, make no bones about it, it is an easy life. When you are following your bliss and you are letting your very lucky and intentioned communications with the muse guide you on a path through this physical existence, that's an easy life. Okay. More so, it's enjoyable. And regardless, and I don't know where this path goes for me. I don't know where I end up. I didn't think I'd be here in the year 2025. I didn't think I'd be doing this right now. That's for certain. I had no idea I'd be here. I fight destiny sometimes, and destiny is a big word, but let's just use it, right? Fighting fate. There have been times in my life where I have pushed back against the universe, kind of like showing me which direction I should go. And I've pushed back, and then I always will give in, right? And I think we have to, and because we know it's what's best for us. So I don't know where I'll be in another 15 years, another 30 years. Who knows? I could be out of this physical form in the next 6 months. I don't know what random things could happen that could make me a ghost that haunts all of you. I don't know, right? I'm going to haunt so many people. I'm going to be like the most ambitious ghost. I'm going to be ambitious because ghosts probably don't need sleep. I love sleep. So you can't haunt people, though, when you're still alive, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, I'm going to be very ambitious. I'm going to be a very active specter, a spirit of consciousness, having fun. We'll be out there having fun. I'm going to be lighting up boxes, dude. I'm going to be lighting up so many boxes. I'm going to be saying some crazy stuff through ITC devices. I'm going to be making... I shouldn't say this, but I kind of feel that my consciousness and my spirit knows it to be the truth, that the more serious the investigator, the more ridiculous I'll probably give them responses through their devices, just to like throw them off. And I know that's just, why would you do that, And I just know that I'm probably going to be that guy. I'm going to be that ghost, I just know I'm going to be that ghost. I'm just going to be throwing in some real curveballs. So look forward to that. People in the future who may or may not be communicating with me through ghost box devices. Now, let's get back on track. So we're talking about first of all, we have this reality, right? We do have this physical reality. We have a consensus reality that I do believe is, at the very least, it's an agreement that we all have. And whether or not we have to continue that agreement on a large scale, I'm not 100% sure. My intuition tells me probably no. But we have this physical world. I'm tapping a desk right now. This is a microphone. I'm wearing a couple shirts or whatever, right? I have a fleshy body. So, but what is reality? What is truly the reality? And are we able to perceive the actual truth of what it is? And even if we were we, or could we put it into words, symbolic language that's referenced in the Real Magic book, still would fail to properly encapsulate or describe the totality of whatever this reality truly is. Now, you get into Far Journeys, which is the second book by Robert Monroe, and it's a bunch of transcripts about conversations he's having with entities or idents out there, and what he used to call locale 2, but I guess he's calling it a thing now, a center ring or whatever. It doesn't matter. And oftentimes there aren't words. And they'll say, oh, this is a human word for this, or, there really aren't words to describe. So this is a theme, right? You're getting a theme here that we're communication with entities from the other side. And like when you watch a movie about like, whether it's Contact and Jodie Foster is there, she's on the beach kind of place, right? And she's talking to the superintelligence of knows all things, and you just want all the answers, and you want the answers. You just tell me everything. Like, what's the secret to life? What's the meaning of happiness? What? Tell me the truth about the existence of all things, right? It's this God knowledge, right? And we want it. We seek it. We desire it desperately. And when we're doing paranormal investigations, we're asking big questions sometimes, like, give us the answer. And so often, something very simple will come through. Something about just like love, take care of one another. Simple things like that, right? But nonetheless, we will never, according to all these different things we're reading, whether it's the religion or the magic or the achievable reality and trying to understand consciousness and chaos magic, we will not ever be the boss of it all. And to me, that is, and when I say the boss of it all, what I mean is we're not going to have control of everything. Because he talks about, we're not able, Fraser writes that we're not going to be able to control everything in the world, and we're not going to be able to understand everything in the world. And if we can release the need to do such a thing, maybe that frees us up to fully, truly understand what the thing is that we're even here inside of or a part of, etc. Achievable reality, pushing the barriers back, but understanding that our limitations on ourselves can be powerful, but they can also be restrictive. That's interesting. That's yin, that's yang, right? Above, so below. There's duality there. There's cause and effect to a certain degree, and it's just fascinating to me that religion comes along. People start realizing that it's not sorcerers causing physical death. Panic sets in. Now religion has to take over because there's afterlife stuff in religion, right? Magic, you don't really hear a lot about magical afterlives or like heavens. You never hear a bunch of witches sitting around being like, well, the witch heaven. Is there a witch heaven? If there's a witch heaven, I don't know about it, and I'd be shocked I haven't heard about it. Or maybe I haven't, I don't remember. But at this moment, I am not remembering any kind of witch heaven, right? So we will never truly be able to understand what our reality is. Now, can we get closer and we can get deeper into quantum physics and things like that? And you hear scientists talk all the time. The more we learn, the less we know. And it seems crazy, right? And I feel like sometimes people think that the nature of reality is a book. And at some point you just get to the last page and you've finished the book. And now you read the book, and now you know the story. I don't think this book ever stops having pages added to it the further you get into the book. Can you imagine, like a never-ending story, the never-ending book? Maybe that's the problem. But humans, myself included, understanding we're mortal, understanding that there's more than the physical world and the material world, are drawn to magical practice. And why? Affecting outcome, changing the boundaries of our achievable reality. Monroe talks about the power of thought when you're in the astral plane, as I call it, right, out of body, and how it creates something instantaneously. The power of thought builds worlds. Can you control your thoughts? That is where the tricky part comes in. Meditation, yoga, prayer, these are all attempts to control, channel energy, thought, to affect outcome. This is what's always been fascinating to me about magical practice, and why there is, and it's always confounded me why there's pushback. And it makes sense when you understand, like, the bastardization of, or the darkening of, exaggerating what magic is, and like, oh, it's murder, and there's drinking blood, and all this kind of crazy stuff, right? Not to say that some of that stuff doesn't happen, but the way it is framed. You go to a Catholic church and you're sitting there and you're listening to a 10-minute section of the entire, maybe 15-minute section of the Mass. The whole Mass basically is a ceremony. It's a ritual. It's a ceremony. And if you go and listen to it, which I had to do so many times growing up, you understand that it's all leading up to a very important moment. It's a transmutation of it's alchemy. Changing the bread into the body, the wine into the blood. It is trying to get the essence of Jesus Christ inside you. You are consuming Jesus Christ. You are cannibalizing Jesus Christ. After that magical ritual takes place, where the priest is reading out of a big book and he's got his robes on, he's on an altar, there's all kinds of ornate stuff happening, people are following instructions, up, down, stand, sit, kneel. The miracle happens because the ritual has created it. Now, what do? You walk up like a good little follower and you eat Jesus and you drink Jesus. Now, if I told you, and you had no knowledge whatsoever, oh, you should go to this church with me. We believe that Jesus is our Savior, and we eat his body and drink his blood. And that's the big... And then there's a bunch of songs afterwards, and we shake each other's hands and say peace be with you and all that kind of stuff afterward, and that's the end. And then we go home. It takes about an hour. You'd probably be like, oh, wait, you're eating the body and drinking the blood of... you might have some reservations when you just lay it out that simply, right? So as you can see, any religious practice, any spiritual practice, any magical practice can be framed in a way that sounds grotesque to our modern ears. Oh, it offends our sensibilities, right? We are trying to affect outcome in a favorable way. That's what prayer is. Nothing more than wanting something to change or wanting something to happen or be done. Affecting outcome. And when people pray, they believe that their thoughts and their energy, when channeled properly, affect outcome. Plain and simple. That's stripping it of its different, facades or masks or flavors or styles. That's all it is. Affecting outcome, channeling energy, moving energy, focusing energy, using certain ritualistic phrases and or ways to try to channel energy in groups or individually. Magic is no different. chaos magic, there's really no rules, right? It's like the Outback Steakhouse of the occult, right? Your way. It's like Burger King. Have it your way. Now, it is affecting outcome. It is an attempt to affect outcome. I have a sigil. You can't see it. It is there, hanging up somewhere behind me, but it's behind my mural. That's kind of like, that's why I was drawn to chaos magic. I just like to draw. I like symbols and symbology as well. But once we understand and realize that it works, and I'd be interested to know maybe from some of the listeners what maybe one of the most powerful outcomes of whatever your spiritual practice might be, whether it's magic or otherwise, when you did something and it blew your mind because of how effective it was. Maybe it was a meditation or a ritual during a new moon or a full moon to shed or to grow, or maybe it was something, totally else, something else. Maybe you're into ritualistic magic or something like that. We're going to take one more break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to, kind of go a little deeper, and maybe we'll take a sidestep here as well. And, how does magic apply? And, is it that much different than paranormal investigation? And the answer may surprise all of us when we come to it and when we get there. $3 a month, patreon.com/Ryan Singer. No commercials on any of these episodes ever. And you can watch on Spotify now. Every episode has video to the best of my ability. So get over there and watch. And we'll see you here in a second. We'll be right back. I'm back and I'm drinking coffee. I'm drinking night coffee. Is there anything more exciting than drinking coffee at night? Is there anything more exciting in your life than the dulcet tones of a little half and half in some, what is it called? It's not the medium, it's the light, dark. Yeah, because I didn't realize this until about 6 months ago that whichever one has the most caffeine, it's the light roast, has more caffeine than the other roasts, apparently. I was told that by a person who I believed. So whether or not that's true or not, someone should let me know if I'm a fool for believing. Anyway, so we're talking about magic. We're talking about what is reality. We're trying to affect outcome. We're trying to, build worlds. We're trying to change worlds. We are, using the energies of the universe, whatever they may be, and whoever may have defined them as such. And we're trying to wrap our brain around it. And while also at the same time understanding we'll never fully understand. And if we can release that aspect, maybe we're ahead of the game. But when it comes to whether you want to astral travel, whether you want to do magical practice, whether you want to pray, whether you are, in the imaginal world space and you're manifesting, all these things, they're all tied in, and they're all tied together through thought, through energy, and through consciousness, which is essentially maybe that's all three different words for the same thing. Those could just be synonyms, right? Meanwhile, understanding that science and mathematics is the foundation of science, and even symbolic language, which, I'm a symbolic language guy. That's the school that I gravitate toward, as opposed to a math or a science world or a symbolic language world. Put me firmly in the symbolic language world. Even symbolic language can't do the job, right? No matter how damn good of a poem you've written, Matthew Jackson, will still never. Even Einstein couldn't use mathematical poetry to fully describe the true nature and reality of the universe. And would we ever even be able to know if we did? Because of our separate experience of, quote unquote, being alive. I mean, that's something I think about all the time, kind of to harken back to what we talked about, going down these, letting, these thought branches sprout, and do we keep climbing out further on these branches, which we need to do more. I need to do more of, more daydreaming and things like that. Away from the devices, away from the distractions, the shiny things. And it's like, I mean, is my purple, will I ever understand what purple looks like to anyone else other than me? I just don't think I ever will. I'll never know what your purple looks like. And it is weird. I mean, we can all come together and we can agree on how certain things look, and most things look, if we're, fortunate enough to have the sense of sight, or hear, the song that we hear. Will I ever hear the same Sturgill Simpson song that you hear? Why do some people love music and some people hate the same music that someone else loves? I think it's because they're experiencing it differently. Something is happening. Because in a very simplistic world, a beautiful sound is a beautiful sound, right? Now, obviously, there's context and there's situational moments where a beautiful sound could be an awful sound, right? Excuse me. But will I ever be able to hear the same rancid song you hear? Why don't I like speed metal? Maybe I'm not here. Maybe the way my ear canals are formed through physical genetics make it impossible for the majority of that speed metal and the rate at which it plays for me to enjoy it. Yeah, I don't know. And why do some people hate the Eagles so much, like the dude from Big Lebowski? I just rewatched that movie the other night. You got any good sarsaparilla? Sam Elliott is the living narrator of that movie. Does killer job. I like your style, dude. Anyway, we were talking about magic and all this other kind of stuff, right? But and is it that much different than paranormal investigation? I gotta tell you, my first thought on this is that there's no real difference. Now there's formalized, there's formal language and there's things like that, and you could argue, well, when you go on a paranormal investigation, you're trying to find something that is there, right? And when you're doing a ritual, or you're creating a sigil, or you're practicing magic, you're trying to create something that maybe not. That might not be there that you do want there, or to remove something that is there that you no longer want there. So in that way, paranormal investigation is much different than practicing magic. Now, but at its foundational core, we are talking about the harnessing, the control, or the identification of energy systems or energies. The paranormal investigator is trying to tap in, harness, and interpret. The witch, the sorcerer, the mage, the warlock, they are trying to harness this energy and direct it and create something, or remove something, or bring about something. So they are trying to mold it. They are trying to specify a channel for which it to flow into. The investigator, the paranormal researcher, the experimenter in a lab is trying to observe and is trying to create a situation where they can be something that an observable. They want to find the observables, and whatever equipment they use to try to find those observables is. Are you using dowsing rods? Are you using an ITC box? Are you using tarot cards? What are you using to try to find those observables, to try to give that energy an opportunity to actually directly communicate with you? That is what's cool about that. When that happens, it is exhilarating. It's awesome. You can truly feel the magic happening when communication has been established. I have a feeling that might be okay, that's something else. I thought that might tie in directly to what we were talking about, but it didn't. So I think, the difference is here, one might say it's fundamental between paranormal investigation and magical practice. So I'm not going to go out and say, like, there's no difference between them. But it's, what did I say before? It was, all of our bodies were we're the noodles in the consciousness stew, right? And we're floating around, we're hollow, and the consciousness stew flows through all of us because we're these hollow noodles, right? You can throw paranormal investigation, you can throw magical practice into that stew, and they're also hollow noodles. They are different shaped noodles. One's the elbow, and one's the longer straight one. I don't know my noodles. I did watch the movie Nanos. That was a great movie. That was a fun movie about these grandmas being hired to cook in a Italian restaurant. It's a heartfelt movie. You should check it out. I think it's on Netflix. Any noodles, any hoodles, any noodles, any hoodles. Yeah, so I think there is a difference between that and this and this and that. I do think you can use magic in a paranormal investigation, and you can probably use paranormal investigation techniques while practicing magic. These are things you can do, and there are great examples of this happening. If you've ever watched Hellier, which we've talked about, a million times on this show, you can see magical practice, being blended into paranormal investigation, and it's quite effective. You would argue, or I would argue, right? And those two worlds have been compadres, or they've been tied to one another for quite a while. And I think it would behoove all of us to, you throw the whole kitchen sink at a thing, right? I mean, that's why I use CE5 when I'm on a paranormal investigation. And I'm trying to talk to spirits or ghosts or whatever else, or even creatures. It doesn't have to be ET or alien, UFO sightings, call-ins. Like, that is the whole idea of trying to throw these techniques that are like highly tuned and effective techniques that have been proven over time and have been crystallized by the practitioners and the creators of such things over time and over time and over time. And they're effective and they work. And that's why I use them. Because I've seen the results, right? If I don't get results from something, like from a device on a paranormal investigation, for like every time I ever try to use it, I'll probably stop using it, right? That's just not me. Now, there are techniques to try to roll out of your body, to try to get out of your physical body with your second body, right? For astral projection, for out-of-body experiences. I'm going to give you just the brief rundown of, if I can remember, 5 techniques. One of them is the log roll, right? And you roll from one. You just imagine yourself rolling like a log in water. And can you feel it? Is it happening? And then while your physical body obviously is remaining still. That's one of them. The other one is you imagine yourself as a long, straight pole. Your body's a long, straight pole. And then you lift up from the head out of, as a very stiff, from the physical body, right? And then come back down, right? So that's one of them. Like you're lifting up a large stick from one end on the ground while keeping the other end of the stick connected to the ground, right? And that's another way to lift out of your body. Another one is just to lift out, just to feel yourself lift out of the body, right? Maybe that works for you. Another one is to back away from your physical body. And these are in the guided meditations of the Gateway Voyage. You can back out of your body. You can kind of back away from yourself, right? That's another way. Here's the way that's effective for me. And those other 4 ways, maybe I've felt tinges of things from time to time, but the way that really gets me when I'm like, oh, we got action, right? When I know I've got action. The other way is to imagine your physical body has a hole in the top of your head. And some of you might be thinking, well, yeah, Ryan, you've definitely got a hole in your head because you let your brains fall out. It's that old Aaron Tippin song, like if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, I think, or something. Or like, you don't want to have too much of an open mind or your brain might fall out, right? It's that whole adage. Anyway, you imagine there's a hole in the top of your head and that your second body, your astral body, your spirit self, right, your true self, seeps out, leaks out of your body. And when I do this technique in the right conditions, and I've done the protocols, or I've done the steps leading up to it, like the resonant breathing, I've done the energy conversion box, I do the mantra, I put my resonant energy bubble up, and I can feel all that energy happening, and I get to, what is it, C10 or whatever, then go into 12, And then when I do this, and then when I do, if I'm there, boom, and I seep out, I can feel, even though I'm not moving my body at all, I can feel as I'm seeping out of my body, my physical body, through the top of my head, through a hole in the top of my head. I feel like I'm having my neck stretched. And my neck is now 3-4 feet long, 5 feet long. I feel like my head is separating from my body, but my neck is still there, just stretching out Fantastic Four style. Mr. Fantastic. That's when I know I'm grooving, right? And it happened to me just a couple nights, was it 2 nights ago? 2 nights ago, I think it happened to me. And I saw, Monroe instructs you just to observe what's around you when you're out of body. And I saw darkness, nothing but darkness. And I saw blue veins of energy and electricity, just constantly changing and in flux. And then the next day I have a very interesting conversation with my friend Carolyn, after having an interesting conversation with a friend of mine that same night, who texted me basically those same blue lines and a picture of something. Then the next afternoon, I'm having a conversation with my friend Carolyn in Florida, and she needs to send me these photos of these leaves that were left on the front porch. And then our other friend, Ed Brown, had previously already talked to her about this gifting situation. And he said, well, the reason you can tell they're different from the other leaves that you had picked or people that were already in the house, it's because of the veins in the leaves. And when I was writing in my journal about it, I said at the very end, I go, and you know what? These were very reminiscent of veins in a leaf. It's all connected, basically, is the point here, right? Wow. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I sure did. There's magic in the world. I hope you find your way to affect outcome in the way that is best for you and for all those that follow you. I want you to have your best outcome every single time. I want you to get there, and I think you will. In fact, I know you will. We're all going to get there. I love you. I hope you love yourself. And I hope to see you at a live show, ryansarencomedy.com. It's got my tour dates. And don't forget to, come say hi after the show if you come to one of the shows. And if I don't see you at a live show, which I understand everybody can get there, I'll just see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.